leadership program here at the Personal Development Center, we bring in people we see as role models who have charted a particular path in a certain industry or area to share their learnings so that we can all benefit from their experiences. And so today we get to host a man who has traversed the private space, the public sector, the international space. We know, many of us know him as having done some work with the BBC, Reuters, and international news agencies. We also know about he hosting a long-standing program before talk shows became very popular in this country. And very interestingly, he had this endorsement from Larry King that reminded us that there are programs and there are programs. He went on to become the CEO of the Telecoms Chamber, and he is currently the chairperson of the board of the National Communications Authority. Our interest today is in the professional journey, the various angles, and then very importantly, the leadership learnings from all the various places he's been. Knowing him to be as good a communicator as he is, I'm sure that we will leave here with nuggets of wisdom that would last us for a lifetime. So let's give a big round of applause to Kwaku Sakyi-Addo. Let's welcome him.
Thank you. Please sit. Thank you very much. First of all, let me say a very big thank you to Reverend Albert Okran for inviting me to meet all of you wonderful people. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here this afternoon. And I also wish to congratulate Reverend Albert Okran and his team for putting together such a wonderful opportunity for young men and women to become better people. I wish that I was maybe 20 years younger, and maybe it's not too late. Perhaps I should sign up. But I don't recall when I was in my 20s or 30s. I don't recall opportunities like this. We were blindfolded and we smelled our way through with a bit of direction from above. And by His grace, I'm standing before you today. So I'll tell you as briefly as possible about my career journey, and then I will share with you a few bullets about, if you like, the guideposts that have shepherded me in my career and my life. So I was born in Accra, not far away from here. There's a hospital nearby called Kolibu, and that's where I was born, but I didn't grow up in Accra. I grew up in Ekropong-Ekwapim. My parents didn't live there. My father was a teacher, and he taught mostly in the Ashanti region, and he was transferred every couple of years, as a civil servant from one town to the other, and he didn't like the idea that his children will hop from town to town, going from one school to the other. And so he thought that I should live with in our hometown, or his hometown, Ekropong-Ekwapim. And so I lived with my grandmother and my aunt, was my father's sister, and went to school. In fact, it's one of the best schools, I believe, in the country. It was called the Demonstration Primary School, which is attached to the Presbyterian Teacher Training College, which is the first teacher training college in sub-Saharan Africa, established in 1848. And so the primary school I went to was established in 1927. It's almost 100 years old. And so the best teachers from the teacher training college were recruited at the teacher training college. So that's where, at the primary school. So that's where I got my education. Although my aunt, who was sort of my immediate guardian, didn't go to school. And maybe there was an advantage there. She didn't go to school, so she couldn't write, she couldn't read. And one of the things that I learned very early to do was to write in both Twi and English. So as early as when I was 6 years old, I wrote letters for it was a family house. So I wrote letters for the elderly people. They would dictate it in Twi and I'll write it in English if the person was going to, was Bible educated, i.e. educated to read their Bible. So they can read the Twi Bible, but they can't read English. In that case, the letter would be in Twi. So I would write Twi and they'll post it. And when the letter came back, when the reply came back, if it was in English, I'll translate into Twi. If it was in Twi, of course, I'll read it to family members. So I was doing this in primary school. So I suppose maybe that prepared me for journalism. So if I'm to make a connection between my upbringing and how I became a journalist, perhaps that's the dot that I might connect, that I started writing very early. At my father's funeral a year and a half ago, the tribute, his biography obviously was in English, but I read the biography in Twi, and people wondered how I was able to just look at the English and just deliver in Twi. And I said I was doing this when I was 6 or 7 years old. So, so that's, I would say, my early connection to journalism. I very early on felt I was special. Now, whether that's true, whether that was true then or true now, I don't know. But I just thought I was special. And therefore, I thought I should have the best. I should be among the best in any and everything, including going to the best schools. The fact that my father was a simple teacher didn't strike me that would have economic implications for what it would cost to go to the best schools. As they say, a child on its mother's back doesn't know the way is long. I was a child, and I thought I should go to the best schools. So some of my colleagues, my classmates in primary school, who came from, slightly better elevated families and had the means, after class 6, there was a boarding school at Aburi for boys, the Presbyterian boarding school, Aburi Boys Boarding School. Some of you might have heard the likes of Kwesi Pratt and others having attended Aburi Boys Boarding School. Obi Amwa, the parliamentarian, went to Aburi Boys Boarding School. It was one of the best schools in Ghana. You went there to prepare yourself for secondary school, for common entrance. It was a school of, I wouldn't say hard knocks. It was a boot camp without the boots. Aburi cold, you bathe, you woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and you spend the first hour weeding, cutting grass for an hour, and you had a cold bath, and you had a sweeping plot, and you had a weeding plot in addition to having weeded for an hour, and you've got to do all of that, have a bath, and be ready for assembly at 7. And you dare not be 10 seconds late, you'll be greeted with a cane. There was no mercy. So I decided that it was not that I decided, it was the best school. So I decided I would go there. I decided that's where I would go. It cost a lot of money, apparently, of course, I didn't know. And when I applied and I got admitted and I informed my father, he said to me, I didn't know, but eventually, I think my mother, mothers, they somehow make it happen. They sell a piece of cloth there, go to some money lender across the town, and so on. And she made it happen. But number one, because of cost, and number two, because it was such a tough place, I said to myself, I will not spend more than 1 year in this place. I will pass the common entrance, and I will go to, in my view, the best school, although Rev might not agree, the best school in Africa, Achimota School. And so I applied for Achimota School, and I was admitted, and went on. But, so the point I'm making is about self-belief. Yeah, it's about self-belief. You have to believe in yourself. You've got to do that for yourself. Self-confidence. But it's not enough. You've got to demonstrate it. Believe it, but do it. Prove it. Yeah. So you believe it and you work to prove it. So that's what I set out to do. I thought Achimota School fatame. But you have to work to go to Achimota School. And I did. I thought the Brew Boys fatame. And so I worked at it to go to a Brew Boys. So I could elevate myself and be like those boys and girls in my class that I thought were special. And I thought, so am I. But let me jump to work. So after secondary school, my later teenage years were a bit of a letdown for my own standards. So, the usual path would be you finish O-level and you get a distinction and you go to sixth form and you go to straight to university and you become a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. Well, it didn't work out like that for me. I would say I failed myself. I got distracted as a young man by the things around me. I got distracted. And so I lost focus as a young man. And so I didn't do as well. I did okay at my A-levels. Sorry, at my O-levels, I did get a grade 1, but I didn't make a distinction. But I didn't do well enough to go straight to sixth form. I had to do my maths again. And so I did do my maths again, but I lost a year. And then instead of Achimota School, I had to settle for second best, Accra High School as a day student. So that was a bit of a drop, a step down. So I went to sixth form in Accra High School, and I think the distraction got worse because the authority was weak. And so as young men and women, we lost our way. So I didn't do well at my A-levels as I know I could have and should have. But it still didn't diminish the self-belief. I just thought, I'm better than this. What can I do? So I got counseling from a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. I liked to write, and I liked current affairs, and I followed everything that went on around the world. I read Newsweek from cover to cover as a teenager, from as early as 14 years old. And I remember, now there's US elections going on. Back in 1976, I was a kid. I I know everything that was going on in the US elections, knew the names of the candidates. I read from cover to cover. And I wrote poetry. So this man, this lecturer, Professor Jakwa, who passed away 2 years ago, had asked me whether I had considered journalism as a career. And I said, no. And he said, you should think about it. Why don't you make inquiries? So I went to make inquiries at the Institute of Journalism, and they had done the admissions for that year already. So I had to bide my time for a year, and then went to write the exams. I passed, and I went to the journalism school. But the moment from my first day in class, I knew this was my place. I felt like a fish in the ocean, like a dolphin in the ocean. I just thought, this is my place. And that, I guess, as they say, the rest is history. I got involved in student politics as well. So I was in the NUGS executive with the likes of Dan Botwe and Arthur Kennedy and Guzi Tano and all of these people. So I got to know, these people that have become political leaders of one sort or the other today. So I knew them in the years of NUGS. When I left the Institute of Journalism, some of my mates thought that being a reporter was beneath them. They wanted to be public relations practitioners because they wore tie and they sat in an office and they had a nice desk. I thought that would bore me to death. I wanted to report. I felt I was a storyteller and I wanted to tell stories. So I said, no, I want to report. And so I took on my first job. My first boss was Kwabena Yeboah, the sports journalist. He was my mate, but he became my first boss. Because even when we were in school, he had a newspaper called Sports and Lotto. Back then, you didn't stray into political journalism. You were not allowed. But you could do sports and you could do Lotto. So he combined sports and Lotto. And I wanted to learn from Kwabena about his craft. He was doing the practical thing. So I spent nights with Kwabena learning from him. And then later on, Freddie Blay, who is now, who later became Deputy Speaker of Parliament and now Chairman of NPP, financed Kwabena to start a newspaper called the Sports Guide. So that was a precursor to today's Daily Guide. But they focused on sports. But at the back page, in a corner somewhere, they wrote small politics. So my job was that of distribution manager. Nice title, but my job essentially was to take the newspaper physically to the Neoplan station, board the bus, take it to Kumasi, go and distribute, and collect last week's sales and bring it. But before the paper was produced, I learned from Kwabena the newspaper production process. A. B. I also learned from Kwabena about getting news from its source. So back then, J.A. Kufuor, who subsequently became president, was the chairman of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Kwabena knew him. And so Kwabena went with me to him and would go and do interviews. And so I learned that, newspaper journalism isn't rumor. You don't make it up. You go to the source for the news. We'll go to Kumasi and we'll go to Opoku Efriye, and his wife will pound fufu for us and we'll eat. We'll sit with Opoku Efriye. For those of you who know who Opoku Efriye was, he was a great footballer from those days. Captain of the Black Stars, and they were sitting together eating fufu with him and him telling us about what's going on in Kotoko and so on. So Kwabena was quoting, his stories were authentic. And I said to myself, when when I become a journalist, when I start reporting, I want to go to the people who make the news around the world, just as Kwabena did here in sports. Would go to the likes of Asad Mala. Those were, the newsmakers in football. Would go to Asad's house. Kwabena he would just drive in. In fact, he had a motorbike, so he had his own Okada back then. I would ride behind him and would go to Asad Mala and get the news. And that inspired me, and I learned from Kwabena that, the news, you didn't make news from friends or what some people said in some bar. You went to the source for the news. And that inspired me. And later on in life, when I got to meet the likes of Larry King, as Rev mentioned, Kofi Annan, Boutros Ghali, Ban Ki-moon, Madeleine Albright, and all of these people, in some ways, I give credit to the inspiration that my friend Kwabena Yeboah gave me, taught me, and showed me that it's possible to go to the biggest people in the field that you're reporting from. Now, so I talked briefly about the letdown in my late teens, but that also should tell you that you mustn't give up. When you have self-belief and you slip, don't stay down. Lift yourself up and seek counsel, which is what I did. So I worked eventually as a reporter, got a job, I applied for a job, Ghana News Agency, and got a job at Ghana News Agency as a reporter in 1984. My first day of work was October 4th, 1984. And it was, I lived in Kokomlemle, and I walked, no, actually that was before. I lived in Adabraka, across from PTC. And I walked to work and walked back. Ghana News Agency is in the ministries area. I had a choice between taking trotro or taxi or eating, and I voted for eating. And it was tough. My salary fit in my back pocket, and I didn't have a bank account because there was no point. Because if I open the account, I'll withdraw all the money anyway. So I just kept my salary in my back pocket, and on Fridays we'll go to the cashier because we ran out. The money will run out. If there was some left, you change your trousers, you move the balance and put in the back pocket of your second trouser, which is probably all I had. And Fridays we go to the cashier whose name was, we nicknamed him Onyankopon. We went to him on bended knee to please, give us something to tide us over the weekend. I was a bachelor, and I'll go to Malata and go and do my own little shopping and come and cook something small, which will last like 3 days. The rest of the week, he went to the Yokegali woman to please have mercy on you. So it was a bunch of young men, and mostly young men, my friends. But it was tough, but it's almost like being cold together. Yeah, you huddled and you fed off one another. You found humor in your hardship, and you generated hope and inspiration from one another, and believed that one day, somehow, you're too good for this level. But you had to persist. So one of the things that you should keep in mind is that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And some will go ahead of you. They might even lap you, for those who follow athletics. Those who are really, really fast, they will go, by the time they've done 4 rounds, somebody's just now done 2. So they'll come and lap you. You think they are ahead of the one behind. No, the one behind is already done, so you'll be lapped, but you mustn't give up because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So while I was at Ghana News Agency, I because of my association with with NUGS, I got invited from time to time on panel shows at GTV, youth programs. There was a program called Builders of Today, which is a youth program. And then I was offered to host it. So I did, that was my first foray into television. So while I was working at GNA, I was doing television as well. But when I worked at GNA, I mean, this was my, I was focused, and I enjoyed good leadership. I enjoyed good leadership. The leadership at the Ghana News Agency was exemplary. I woke up in the morning looking forward to go to work for my boss, Mr. Kenneth Wood, who passed away about 8 years ago. I looked forward to working for him. On weekends, when my friends went to drink, I went looking for stories. I wanted to surprise Mr. Wood on Monday morning. So I'll go to work. I'll walk to work. And so I started in 84. At the end of 85, when they were doing journalism awards, I won the best news agency journalist. The following year, I won Journalist of the Year. That was year 2. Now, I was telling you about the financial struggles, well, what that did for me, and by the way, Nana Konedu Ajman Rawlings was the one who presented me the prize, and my prize was to go to Lagos and and spend a month with the news agency of Nigeria on attachment. But it came with a lot of money. It came with a per diem, so daily allowance of about $80 to $100. Now, for somebody who was on, was earning maybe something like 1,400 cedis. And by the way, 1,400 cedis is not today's Ghana cedis. So it's like today 100 Ghana. So 1,400 is probably like 140 Ghana. You ate it 1 cedi at a time. And so to win a prize, that gave you an opportunity to get something like $80 every day for a month. So I arrived in Lagos, and I met on arrival by an official of the Ghana Embassy, who happened to be my senior. I didn't know he was my senior in primary school at Ekropong. And he says, "Oh, I'm a bachelor. I live in a 4-bedroom house. You can stay with me." So for a month, I made so much savings. I became a rich man. And so I moved from Adabraka, where I was basically perching with my cousin and his friend and his sister. There were like 4 or 5 of us in a room, and we ran a shift at night. So I moved because I was able to afford a place, a boys' quarters in Kokomlemle, a 2-bedroom place, and was able to afford 5 years advance, which is how much was being demanded. So then I thought, yes, it's true, I'm special, But that opened opportunities for me. So I got scholarships to go educate myself further in journalism. So I specialized in news agency journalism in Berlin at the International Institute for Journalism. I came back, worked for a short while, and then went to specialize in print journalism at the University of Wales in Cardiff on Commonwealth scholarship as a Commonwealth scholar. And then I came back, worked a little bit, and I thought, yeah, I want to do a postgraduate, understand. Thank you. I wanted to understand, I mean, I was okay at the practice, but I wanted to understand the theoretical underpinnings of journalism. So I got admission to Legon to do a postgraduate at the School of Communication Studies, where you did things like mass psychology, where you understood, it's like learning to drive without understanding what happened underneath the hood. So School of Communication Studies filled that gap, understanding why people react to writing a certain way, why people would read, why people are attracted to certain kinds of information and not others, and so on. So I did that. And then right after that, I got a fellowship to go to McAllister College in the States as a Well-Press Institute fellow, where my host father was a man called Reverend Harry Morgan, who happened to be Kofi Annan's host father when he went to McAllister College. And Harry Morgan knew everybody who was somebody in the world. He knew Ronald Reagan, he knew John Kennedy, he knew Alex Haley, who wrote Roots. And in fact, Alex Haley wrote some of the final chapters of his book in Harry Morgan's house, and he gave me photocopies of some of the drafts of Alex Haley's work in his own hand. And he introduced me to Condoleezza Rice, who subsequently became Secretary of State. He opened lots of doors to me. So I came back, and this is 1992. Ghana had become a democracy. And I just thought, I think GNA has become too small and restrictive for me. I'm not a chicken, I'm an eagle. I'm ready to fly. And so I, thank GNA for everything it had done for me. And I'm still really grateful to GNA. And from time to time, I go to GNA to help out, to speak with the reporters and so on. It's like GNA is like your grandmother that cared for you. She's frail, she's weak, she's old, but you still love her. And that's the way I feel about GNA. So I left GNA and worked very briefly for an advertising agency, but I missed the trenches. And so when I was approached by Kofi Kumson, who was editor of Ghanaian Chronicle, to edit the paper for him when he was going to Harvard University for a year. I'd never worked on a newspaper before, but as I said, I specialized in print journalism in Cardiff, and I said, yes, I can do it. One of my tasks was to double the circulation in order to double my income, my salary. And I thought, okay, by the way, my mother is Kwaku, so, there's a bit of mercantilism in my DNA. And I thought, okay, instead of trying to sell the same issue, the Monday issue, to twice the number of the readers, I'll produce a second one. Because what I found was that sometimes we had so many stories that there was a spillover. And so we could hang on to it and do a Thursday edition. So that's how I doubled the circulation and doubled my salary. And then from then I got a bit of stability, and I'd seen a young lady, young tidy chick that I fell in love on at first sight. And so that too is history. So the Chronicle was a very interesting place for me, because what I'd learned at Cardiff, I brought into practice. It became, the opposition didn't contest in the parliamentary elections. So in some ways, we were the watchdog of the government. And I did my journalism in such a manner that even those that we criticized had to love us. Never got into trouble with the law, never had to write an apology or retract a story, because we were diligent. And because one of the things that I learned from the people I met in my courses of study in Berlin, in Cardiff, in the United States, was that I can be like the best in the world. I can, why not? I'd been reading Newsweek since I was a teenager. I should be able to write like they write. And if I can write like they write, if I can ask questions the way they do, well, that's as good as the best in the world. I should be able to do that. So that's the approach I brought to the Ghanaian Chronicle, that when I wrote a column, that you should be able to pick it and put it in the Telegraph in the UK. It had to be, it is possible. It's possible. I was not about to benchmark my work with the local quality. We're eagles. So that's the mindset I brought to my work. And so while I was at the Ghanaian Chronicle, the emails and telecommunications took on a new life. Online, things started going online. So the Ghanaian Chronicle, while I was editor, became the first newspaper to go online. So the Ghanaian Chronicle was available around the world. The BBC got attracted by some of the stories we covered, and they approached me and asked if I would report for them. And I said, of course, because again, the Kwaku in me, it would bring additional income. And so when we would put out a story, it would appear in the Ghanaian Chronicle, it would come on the newsstands in the morning. I would rewrite the story for the BBC, so it would be broadcast in the afternoon for an extra income. Sometimes there were stories that, a paper would find, there's not enough room, 16 pages. I'll pitch it to the BBC and they would like it, and I'll give it to the BBC. Over time, I got attention from other international news organizations. There was a news organization called Bridge News. They were very wealthy. They were worth like over $2 billion worldwide. And they approached me if I would file for them. Their interest was in commodities. So gold, cocoa, bauxite, and the economy. And political news that impacted the economy. And so they approached me and I accepted to work for them. So I was doing the Ghanaian Chronicle, doing the BBC and doing Bridge News. After a year, Kofi Kumsin returned and our editorial philosophies differed. And so we parted ways. And so I spent more time doing the BBC and doing Bridge News. But Bridge News has a competition called Reuters. Reuters is the world's largest news agency. And Reuters had a French guy in Ghana who was reporting for them. But I always beat him. Bridge News was always first with the major news stories. And so Reuters approached me and made me an offer I could not refuse. They paid me, the Kwaku in me again. They paid me per word, a few dollars per word that I filed. I was paid per word in dollars. So this is the world's largest leading news agency, and I was one of their leading journalists. And one of the things that I learned from Ghana News Agency, which I brought to my work, is accuracy, diligence, speed. That when you publish something, it had to be true. If you spelled a name, if it was Mensa, you clarified, is it with an H or without? Yeah, you didn't make mistakes like that. You put decimals where they belonged, because they made the difference between a million and a billion. They made the difference between 1,000 and 100,000. So little things like that, as a journalist, broadcasting, putting out news about people and events all over the world, you can't get it wrong. Never, ever. So that's what I brought to my work, which was recognized by Brit News and subsequently by Reuters. And then I was approached by Kwesi Chum when he founded Joy FM. He approached me, wanted me to be the morning show host. I was freshly married, and the idea of waking up at dawn at 4 a.m. and living under the covers and going to sit in the radio studio, in fact. you know about work-life balance. I have to balance work with life. And I thought, my wife is important. You, one person, you are doing BBC, you are doing Reuters, you are doing this. You don't want to do wife? So I thought, no, I have to do wife. So I said to Kwesi, let me give it a thought. I gave it a thought, and I went back to him and I said, you know what? No, I won't do the daily one. But at the end of the week, we'll sum up everything that happened in the week. And we will pick the highlights, and we'll call the show Front Page. And I'll host that. And we will review the week's top stories. In other words, what was in the front page of the news. And if you like, the show will become the front page of the radio station. And he liked the idea. He bought it. And I think I negotiated pretty well. Again, the cowboy in me came out. I managed to negotiate to the point that I think I was paid just as much as I would have been paid if I went every day. And I did that for 16 years. And my marriage survived and thrived. So then I took television. I had an opportunity to meet with Larry King and so on, and I was inspired by what he did. Just the simplicity of his interview format. No complicated questions. He says he asked questions that a 19-year-old would ask, because he didn't go to college. He was not in competition with his guests. He asked simple questions. I liked that. I was inspired by that. And so I thought I would start Kwaku 1-on-1, which I did. I had 4 editions, and then it was stopped. And then I resumed in 2001. And thank you. I resumed in 2001 and carried on until... So this was essentially my journalism career. But by 2007, I thought, okay, now, I can write. I'd had articles published in Newsweek, which I used to read. I'd had articles published in Washington Post, The Telegraph, in the UK, Daily Mail, and so on and so forth. And I thought, but I don't know how to manage people and resources. I've never managed an organization before. I'd like to diversify my background. And so I signed up to do management executive program in GIMPA. And on the back of that, I applied for a position as general manager at 11Mar20, which was a Dutch South African company that had the management contract for Ghana Water Company. And they were having a lot of internal communications problems because, you know, people didn't like these white people telling them what to do and so on and so forth. Of course, on the external front, there was a lot of agitation that, you know, water is life and therefore should be free, and, you know, these guys want to make profit off us and so on and so forth. And so I applied for the position, and I got it and became the general manager. That gave me an opportunity. I did that for 4 years to manage. There was like 3,200 people. So as GM, I learned, you know, the whole management. Picked up management skills, and after 4 years, I was offered the. It was actually towards the end of the management contract. And I was wondering, what am I going to do when the management contract ends? And I was driving down the motorway one Friday, and I received a call from a man who said we had met in church, but I couldn't recall. And he described himself, oh, you know, I'm tall, I'm light-skinned, I've got a gap tooth, and so on and so forth. And I thought, oh, are you General Sam's son? He says, yes. He says, oh, okay, I remember you vaguely. He says, anyway, the mobile network operators are establishing a chamber of telecommunications, like the Chamber of Mines, headed by Dr. Joyce Ayi, and your name has come up. And I thought, me? But I don't know anything about telecommunications. He said, well, your name has come up. And I thought, well, I suspect that they've got their candidate already, and maybe they've been asked to find 3 people, and so they are using me as a prop. But I thought, never mind, it doesn't hurt anything. All right, I'll send my CV. So I sent my CV, I was called for an interview, and they said, well, if you don't hear from us by the close of day, then thank you, but good luck in, have a nice life. But I heard from them within 2 hours and said, okay, you're hired. So that's what took me to the Chamber of Telecommunications, where I started it from scratch, hired. And so, of course, the 4 years that I done at 11Mar20 and the Executive Master's Program that I did in management, and the decision that I made, strategic career decision that I should spread myself, diversify myself, go beyond just being, you know, a writer to a manager of people and resources, paid off. So, you know, I want to talk about the importance of education, just continuous education. You can't go wrong with education. Never, and never stop learning. Never stop learning. Never stop learning from the best there is. Benchmarking is important. Who are you comparing yourself to? And making strategic career decisions. That's really, really important. You know, so although I was doing fairly okay in journalism, I just thought, you know, I'm getting on, and, you know, I'm approaching 50, and do I still want to run around with a microphone chasing politicians? You know, I think not. Yeah, at that point, I thought I should do something different. So recognizing those moments in your career, in your life, is important, and making the strategic decisions as to what to learn, how to build your capacity, and prepare yourself for when that phone call comes. In fact, prepare yourself for a phone call. Prepare yourself for a phone call. And then after 6 years at the Chamber of Telecommunications, then I again receive a call, and I'm asked by the president to chair the National Communications Authority, because we'd been making suggestions, this should be done, we think such and such a change should occur. Of course, admittedly, many of the things that I would like to see done. Not all of them, I've not been able to do all of them. There are many I would still like to do. You know, once you get in the foray, you find that, okay, things are slightly more complicated than you thought. However, it's important that you're able to say to yourself, I gave it a try. You know, back in 2001, I was offered a position by President Kufuor to be his spokesperson. I enjoyed being a reporter, and I wanted to tell Ghana's story. That's where my love was. So I turned him down. And in 2004, after the 2004 elections, I was offered deputy minister. I turned it down. I wanted to report. I wanted to do my Kwaku one-on-one. That's what I loved. I wanted to do that. So I turned it down. On this occasion, I thought, okay, I'm approaching 60. You know, you write, you criticize, and so on. Now you're being given an opportunity to help make a difference. So you stop running commentary, but come and see if you can make a difference at the strategic level. And I thought, okay, while I'm still fit, let me give it a shot. And so I accepted to do it. And that's where I am now. I would like to conclude by just sharing these few bullets with you, some of which I've mentioned already. And then you can ask questions. So number one, I mentioned that you are in a marathon, not a sprint. So you have to pace yourself. You will go hungry. You will suffer heartbreak. Your friends will leave you behind. But it's a marathon. As long as you don't go to sleep, keep going. It's a marathon. Number two, you should know who you are. Who are you? What excites you? What do you like? What do you enjoy doing? So you have to know yourself. Know yourself. And I think that there's a question that a gentleman said he would ask with regard to, do I think I was born, who was it that asked yes. Your question was do I think I was born, whether I was born to become who I am, or, you know, there's a question about nature and nurture, and I don't know whether there's a conclusion. You can debate that till the end of time. But let's put it this way: everybody is born. Everybody comes with something, some talent or the other. Yeah, I believe that everybody, whether it's genetic or you come with, I don't think it's accidental that Abidi Pele's children play football. I don't think it's an accident. However, even they train. Messi doesn't wake up in the morning. Yeah, he doesn't show up when there's a match and wears his outfit and shows up on the pitch. He trains. Why does Messi have to train? So even if it's gold needs to be refined to become, otherwise it's just like a piece of rock, right? So even though there's gold in it, worth thousands of dollars in that ore, when it's lying down there, there's gold in it, but you might just kick it. You need to refine it and to wash it and to polish it to discover what it's truly worth. Talent is the same. Let's assume you're born with it. You have to nurture it. You have to nurture it to maximize what it was meant to be. So that's my view about. And then, of course, even if you didn't have that talent, but you hone it, maybe you grew up in Bukum, therefore, there's a lot of fighting all the time. So somehow you learn to become a boxer. If you keep boxing and fighting and fight, you become a boxer. If you live in Bukum long enough, you become a boxer. So it's about knowing who you are and also nurturing your talent. And also, by knowing who you are, you also know what your weaknesses are. When I went to the Chamber of Telecommunications, I mean, the only thing I know about telecommunications is to use my phone. So there are regulatory issues in telecommunications. There are technical issues and technology issues in telecommunications. There are legal issues in telecommunications. Telecoms, there's a lot of money involved, the financials, tax issues and so on and so forth. So how did I manage? Well, I did by recognizing that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a telecoms engineer. I'm not a mobile money expert. Yeah, I'm none of these. I made sure that I built a team that had these talents. And once you have a team that fills in where your gaps are, you have a whole. You have a complete whole that is able to deliver on your mandate. So know yourself, surround yourself with people who know what you don't. And then, as I've said already, educate yourself. Never stop. And benchmark. Aim at being like or being the best in the world. You might not become the best in the world, but God knows you gave it a shot. And never give up. Never give up. Never settle. Never settle. Never. You're too good. You're special. You're special. Never give up. Never settle. And give your best always. That's what I did at Ghana News Agency. When others went to play, I went to work. Even on weekends. I'll go to the house, the residence of the World Bank country director, and I'll ask him, is there something happening this month? Is there something new next week? Well, I think so. Well, give me a minute. He'll bring me documents. I'll go to the office and go and file. So give your best always. Forget the pay. Forget the pay. Because you are drafting your resume. No one writes their CV and includes how much they are being paid. You just draft your CV. You will not be hired because you earned a lot or because you earned too little. You'll be hired because of what you did. Then a few personality sort of, or personal questions. The soft skills. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. For those who speak Twi, mawenim nyinyam. That's one of my mother's nuggets to me. Mawenim nyinyam. And mawenim nyehare. Let your face not be light. Let your face be heavy. That when someone is walking up to you or wants to say something rude to you, make them think twice. Respect yourself. Almost, you don't build a fence around yourself, but be accessible, but let those who approach you think, especially if they've got something negative in their mind, let them think twice. Yeah. And then respect everyone. no matter their station in life. I know we are Kuapims, after the Mepaucho, we take it for free. Please, thank you, holding the door for the other person in traffic, letting, that person who wants to enter the main road, let them through. Be kind. Be kind. And then be trustworthy. When at the interview at the Chamber of Telecommunications, when all the CEOs interviewed me, one of the things that I said to them was, you can trust me with your money. You can trust me with your money. I will account for every coin. Trust me. You should be able to say to anybody, trust me, and make it true. Trust me. So be trustworthy. That's one of the things that's missing today. Can you be trusted? Can I trust you with my shop? Can I trust you with my business? Can I trust you with my taxi? Can I trust you with my dress? Can I trust you with my husband? So, trust. We've got to, what's his name? Donald Trump says, make America great again. Well, let's build or create trust again. And then modesty. Let's make modesty fashionable again. Simplicity. Let's make modesty cool again. I've talked about believing in yourself. Live within your means. You're running a business. There's an adjacent business. You're doing a similar thing. It appears to be doing well. You very often, what appears to be the case is very often not the case. It's very often not the case. So envy no man. Live within your means. And I will end with my favorite. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant, for they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You're a child of the universe. No less than the trees and the stars, you have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful and strive to be happy. Thank you. I'm sure you don't have questions.
Wow. A round of applause one more time for Kwaku Sakyi-Addo. From trustworthiness to simplicity to detail-orientedness to new plan buses and everything in between. If there's one thing I've learned, is to keep quiet and let you ask the questions. And I'll just be the linguist. If you have a question for Kwaku, please. Martin, do you have a second microphone? All right, so if you have a question for Kwaku, please stand in the middle and then we'll just bring you the microphone. Chris, come up and ask your question.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Accra Kwaku. Obviously, you did go to a good school. I know I may lose my job with Reverend Okran, but that's okay. You've given us a really impactful journey of yourself, and there are lots of questions to ask, but I just want to ask two. First one is pretty an obvious one. I'm a student of leadership, and my passion has to do with the fact that a lot of the contexts we have in studying leadership is Western and foreign. So the question is, when are we having your book? So that's the first one. And then the second one, there's no doubt that as you run through the conversation, the journey with us, you kept making allusions to people who you consider to be mentors, and you don't shy away from speaking about the impact they've made in your life. I wanted you to speak a little more with regards to the role of mentoring in our growth as people today, and for the purpose of what the fad of mentorship or mentoring is today. I would like you to make that distinction between the fanciful use of mentor to the extent of being somebody who is just, who you want to just validate who you think you are, much more to a mentor who is speaking into your life and you're picking some specifics with regards to development with.
So my book, I have the title, it's called Left to Right. Left to Right. So I have the title. It's left with the book. I've got the cover. Thank you. All right. I've got the cover. It's left with the content. Small time. Yeah. But of course, opportunities like this, and I've had a few over the last year or so, and I think it's coalescing to the point where I can't resist it anymore. And of course, also now I've turned 60, and so I think that it's a good time to kind of have something to reflect on. Some people write when they are 30, 25, and so on. I thought, I should do something before I write, as against before I die. Then about mentorship. Okay, if I understood the question about what my understanding of where's the gentleman? So I just want to paraphrase your question. So your question is what my understanding of mentorship, or what role mentorship played in my life?
What role it can play in the life of somebody who wants to develop in their journey, rather than a situation where it's just
okay.
And just to tie up to the point, of all the snippets of information that we posted on social media from your presentation, the one that is getting the highest reaction is saying that Kwabena Yeboah was your first boss, and your first job involved physically carrying the newspapers on the Neoplan bus to Kumasi and actually going to distribute. It seems to have struck a chord with many people, including people who are in journalism today, talking about the real beginnings and what is required to excel. And those are the points that I think he would like to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to get to the top of the coconut tree without climbing it. But there's no shortcut to the top of a coconut tree. And that's why I've kept emphasizing on the marathon. You've got to start. And the vast majority of us will have to start from the bottom. And you'll have to get your feet and your hands dirty. And it will be a hard slog. And you will go hungry. And no government will suddenly change that. It's just the nasty truth. And young people should know that by now. You have to work for it. There are no free lunches. But if you are prepared to work hard, do the things others don't want to do, try and differentiate yourself and be different, go where others don't want to go, and you keep at it, you will excel. So regarding mentorship, yes, I think Kwabena was both a friend and a mentor, and I have a lot of respect for Kwabena. And so there's been Kwabena. Then of course, because of the nature of journalism, the people you look up to, their work is available. Therefore, you read them, or you hear them, or you watch them. So the likes of Elizabeth Ohene. Just her courage is incredible. Or Ajua Yeboah Ferry. Quiet, steely, strong. Those people teach you, or taught me, that you don't have to raise your voice to make a great point.
Let's take the second question from Mary Asariebo.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kwaku Sakyi-Addo. Actually, that's what I came here to do, not to ask a question. The question I had in mind, you have answered it, and that's the mentorship. But I'd like for you to know that whether it was front page or Kwaku one-on-one. You got me. Because, sometimes I had to get to the office, but you were on. And my colleagues came to know that if I'm not seated at my desk, they should go to my car and they'll find me seriously listening to you. So thank you. And thank you for being a good mentor as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Michael Mensah.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, man.
It's nice to make your acquaintance.
Pleasure.
Please, I have two questions. The first one is talking about building your talent, and I want to find out, should formal education be the only way to build your talent and to make worth, actually? And then what will you say about personal branding and how to push your passion with branding?
How to push what?
Your passion with branding.
How to push your passion with branding.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Okay, so with the job you do and how to present yourself to your client and how to get your audience to listen to you. If it's not on TV, then on radio. So I think your voice is something that people can identify you with. So how do you build that? Yeah.
And then your first question was? Formal.
Yes, so whatever talent you have, should it always be a formal education too?
No. Education doesn't have to be formal, not necessarily. Yeah, education is acquiring understanding. Yeah, education is acquiring, if you like, knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is not enough. If understanding is even more important than knowledge. You can know without understanding, but without understanding, you cannot have application without understanding. And application is more important. That's where you use the knowledge to impact, to add value, to make better. Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
So it doesn't have to be formal education.
Okay.
Mechanic apprentices, they are, that's informal education. Sitting at the feet of an older person, following somebody, shadowing somebody. That's not formal education, but it is education.
Thank you, sir.
And then your second question is about branding. Branding is the accumulation. It's essentially about how you're perceived. Essentially, that's what it is. How you're perceived. What people expect of a person, an institution, a thing, a country, an entity. What do people expect? So you have to answer yourself that question. How do I want people to see me? When people hear my name, what do I want them to think? What are the 2 or 3 things I want them to associate my name with? What's the men's go guy? What's his name? Nana Pia. Yeah. So Nana Pia Mensa. If you hear Nana Pia Mensa, what comes to your mind? What are you passing on to your children so that when your son or daughter goes to ring someone's doorbell and it says, "Oh, I am Yao Apia Mensa," and the man or woman comes out, what do you think he or she? I'm here to look for. I'm here to see Ajwa, your daughter. What do you think the father is going to ask, or mother? Which Apia Mensa? You want to build your brand to the point that when they ask which appear mensa, they are asking in anticipation, not in trepidation.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Walter, and first of all, I would like to thank ICGC for organizing such a wonderful program, and then having you as one of our guests. Now, my question, as a leader, when you meet great people like Wole Soyinka and the likes, do you get overwhelmed, or how do you handle such people when you meet people very great like Wole Soyinka and the rest? Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful question. That's a question Larry King would ask. You know, the thing about really great people is they put you at ease. They don't have an ego. They don't have anything to prove. They are calm. They put you at ease. They are kind to you. And that was my experience with the likes of Kofi Annan and Larry King. I remember when I met Larry King, he chatted with me so much that the executive producer of the show, when he was getting ready to come to the show, they were doing the makeup, and he had dragged me along into the makeup room, and he was telling me stories. And the lady, Margaret, stuck her head round the corner, but Larry's back was to her, and was asking me, what is he saying? You know, he just took to me, just told me stories and stories after stories. Kofi Annan was the same thing. A lot of the great people, they put you at ease. And so I felt at ease in their presence, and I learned that from them. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Good evening, sir. I'm Isaac Boydu, and I've really been humbled coming for this meeting. I've really been elevated. My knowledge has been enlightened. It's been, taken to a new level, and I know I'm going here differently. And the question I want to ask you is that what has been able to ginger you at every time in your life to go the next level forward? Because you were always on top. There were times that you were affluent, you had enough money, but you still tried to go to the next level by taking new positions. And you didn't just settle for any place. You even spoke about how you got certain contracts back then in certain areas, but you took them down because you knew that there were other things that you wanted to do. And what was just enjoying you to take and go forward, regardless of where you were still, to get to the top and where you are now and what you are still doing? You are still thriving and thriving and thriving, and not just settling for this, but you are still going up. And I want to know what's gendering you to get there.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your question. So I don't know about affluence, maybe self-sufficiency.
Yes, please.
And especially, with the money that I got from the Journalist of the Year award, considering the depth from where I was coming, $80 a day for a month, that was a lot of money. But I think the point with that really was to say that, diligence pays. You don't have to be crooked. You don't have to be unethical. If you're diligent, if you work hard, especially in certain fields like journalism, because your work is out there. For many years, I never applied for a job. After applying for that job at GNA, I always received a phone call. Would you like to, we heard this or we read that, we saw this story, and we thought would be interested in if you could work with us. There isn't a better means of a better way of flattery, than that, than an employer applying to you. An employer applying to you. But what drove me was that I've always felt that I could do better than what I'm currently doing, and always benchmarking with others elsewhere in the world and saying we can do better. If I have control as much as I can, I want to do better than where I currently am, because it's about the talent that we've been given. You want to maximize it so that when the master calls, you can say, here's so much more than you gave me.
Let me jump the queue for the benefit of Mr. Sakyi-Addo, for the benefit of our huge online audience who are also raring to have their voice heard. Let me jump the queue and bring you a question from Abraham Hansen, who is asking, Kwaku, what do you think of Ghana's current journalism, both print and radio? If we can take that one briefly, we go to Madam next.
There are a few nuggets. But the rest aren't nuggets, if I can put it that way. The rest aren't world class. Most of them aren't world class. And I suppose it's because there are so many of them, so they cannot possibly be world class. Also, I think that perhaps they make too many compromises with quality, with integrity. And when integrity is compromised, then it's difficult if, for example, if you're an interviewer, it's difficult to ask the questions that you should ask. I'm told, I don't know, but I'm told, I hear, I hope it's not true, that, some people, people get paid to be interviewed, to interview. I'm not familiar with that experience in my interviewing career, that my guests would pay. If a guest pays you, you can ask, they will tell you what is not complicated. So there's some wonderful journalists. There's some journalists with integrity, and then there's also a lot with neither. Thank you.
Ambrose, and I would like to know how you deal with being Kokuye was Kobna was being your boss, your mate, because I'm in a similar situation. My mate is the overall boss, and sometimes it's be like, oh, you fail, or your mate is the boss, and sometimes I feel like stopping and all those things. So I'd like to know how you were able to rise above this stigma of saying that what are you doing, and now your mate is the boss and you're under. Yeah.
Wonderful question. Don't let your ego get in the way. Focus on what counts. Yeah? Focus on what counts. It doesn't matter. I mean, in the life of this country, I mean, I'm sure if you went to a ministry, you'd find people who are in junior positions, but who in school were the seniors of their bosses. Yeah, somebody was, Ken Oforiata, for example, was my junior. Yeah, he was my junior. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. So don't let your ego get in there. There are more important things than, oh, he was my mate and now he's my boss. Really? What is the work? Focus on the work at hand. In fact, it's an opportunity to work even better. Work together. You you have access to him or her, I suppose,
Yeah.
better than if he or she, is it a man or woman?
A man.
Yeah, better than if he wasn't your mate / friend and now boss. I mean, it's a privilege to have a mate as a boss. It's a privilege. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I believe he treats you well. Otherwise, you would have left.
Yes, all those, like the subordinates and all those things, he will always put me priority, but I still feel like,
No.
even when somebody is talking to me, he may say that you have to know how to present yourself to Rose and all those things, but sometimes I still feel. And then the second question is, in journalism, is there any leading questions? Like if you're asking questions, I'm working with a market research company, Ipsos, and sometimes if you're conducting the interviews, you ask them, then at the end they'll say that you've lead.
Yeah, he has the leading question.
Leading questions.
Yeah.
So how? I like to know, because most of the time you interview and that's where you get
So,
your
for
money.
example, if I say to
Straight to
you,
the point.
oh, your boss gets on well with you, doesn't he?
Yes.
That's a leading question.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
The better question would be, or if it shouldn't be a leading question, do you get on with your boss? Or does your boss get on well with you? As against, you get on well with your boss, don't you? That's a leading question. You are leading the person to say yes.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
We will take the last 4 questions and then we'll be done.
Say hello to your boss.
Good afternoon. My name is Cyrus Dapo, and want to express my deepest appreciation for this uncommon opportunity, to thank ICGC leadership too for this unprecedented opportunity. And I have so many questions to ask. I don't think one session is enough because I feel we have barely scratched the surface. Dr. Gamel taught us this morning about powerful execution intelligence. I'm highly interested in how you managed and led situations like when you were managing the Chronicle, when you were putting together teams for the front page, and so on and so forth with the BBC. But I don't believe one session is enough. So can I use this opportunity to appeal passionately to, to Reverend Okran? Is it possible to bring him back? God willing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Richard. I must say that I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I listened to your last program, The Front Page, and I recall it was all ladies' affair. The ladies who appeared, they all had PhD, and that program inspired me to go back to school, to start my remedials and get my grades good to go back to the university. And now I'm doing my master's, and I hope to get to the PhD level.
Congratulations.
Please, my question has been answered in part by the question Rev asked from the internet about being relevant in this modern time, because the time has changed. During your days as a journalist, we didn't have social media. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the proliferation of media houses. Now there are lots of them. So how does one stay relevant in this age as a journalist? Thank you.
Keep educating yourself. Keep educating yourself. Keep abreast with technology. If now you talk about, of course, when I started with, working as a reporter, we're using an Olympia 600 typewriter. You hit the key and it makes a hole in the paper. But that's technology. That was the technology available at the time. But when computers appeared, we upgraded. So one of the things that I learned when I went to Cardiff was how to edit using the computer, how to lay a newspaper using the computer. So at any given stage, whatever technology is new, essentially you have to come abreast, make yourself abreast with the latest technology. As long as as far as it's useful, impactful, value adding to what you do. You know, so it's not just, if you are going to go on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and it's just, it's going to be a waste of time. I mean, you know, there are people who at work, they are at work, 11 o'clock in the morning, they are on Facebook or Instagram writing and complaining about service in some other organization. But there are customers standing in front of them, but they are posting, complaining on FB. You look at the time stamp, it's 11:30. He's supposed to be working for his or her salary, right? So we've got to use technology to add value, to make us more efficient, to increase productivity, to make us more useful, and so on. So that's its value. But if it's just acquiring a skill that doesn't add value, then that's really a waste of your own talent and a waste of the tool. Yeah. So bring yourself abreast as far as your industry, your field is concerned. Whatever tools or technology that is available there that will make you the best possible professional in that field, go for it. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. The question I had in mind to ask has actually been asked already. So I asked the second question. In my room, I have the desiderata printed large. And somehow I've seen it like every day because when I wake up, I see it. But as you narrated, it carried a certain sense. I think the word is I was awestruck or starstruck. It's strange because I happen to see it every day. It leads me to the idea of storytelling. I get a very good feeling that you're telling a story in a way which you keep your audience captivated, which you keep me glued. And Malcolm Gladwell says that the essence of a good writer is not so much to get you to agree or disagree, but is to engage you to follow through his content. How do you do that?
I don't know. I don't know. I suppose, you know, if you were to ask, I don't want to compare myself to Messi, but if you were to ask, what sport do you follow? You follow football. Okay. Messi or Ronaldo? Oh, me too. Anyway, I suppose that, you know, if you do something over and over, you know, the 10,000-hour rule, Malcolm Gladwell, if you do something over and over and over and over again, you internalize it. It's like learning to type. When you're starting, you have to look for A, and where's S, and where's D and F. But over time, your brain gets wired in such a manner that the brain is a wonderful thing. Such that you don't have to look. Yeah, look at pianists. They don't look for the keys. They just play. They think of the sound and they just play. So if you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, you get wired in such a manner as, you know, you figure out what moves the needle or how to move the needle. Yeah. So I can't explain it. I do it and I kind of watch how people react. If people are falling asleep, then you're doing something wrong. You know, you have to tweak it. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I just keep trying trying it, yeah, and adjusting as I go along. And of course, if you do something for 30-something years, you have to be dumb not to become fairly good at it.
Final question to Adam.
My name is Adam. My final question is that I am taking you as my mentor. And the reason being that I have known you for years. I live in Kokomlemle as well.
Oh.
And the storyline is something that I've lived with as well. It's something that I've also gone through. But my issue is I've not gotten to where I really want to be. So the question I wanted to ask, actually, he asked it. So now, what I want to do is to take you as my mentor. And it's an appeal to ask if you accept me as a mentee. Thank you.
Sounds like a proposal. Yes, I will.
A big thank you to Kwaku Sakyi-Addo. Let's a huge round of applause for. Wow. Thank you so much, Kwaku.
Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful, I don't want to say audience. You're not an audience. You've been wonderful friends. The friends I should have known a long time ago but didn't. Thank you very much. And thank you, Rev, for bringing us together.
A big thank you to Pastor and Mrs. Otabo for putting together this personal development center. I tell people every day that the picture of church that Pastor and Mrs. Otabo have, if every church had it, this country will develop very rapidly. And it's just such an awesome experience to be here together. Let's put our hands together and give God thanks. Kwaku, this is 2 months of training that we've had, and the picture that we have is that by the end of the 4th month, these leaders would have been properly equipped to make a significant contribution to the nation and to the continent. And so thanks for coming. God bless you, sir. Let the applause reflect our appreciation. Wonderful. Please be seated just for a minute. I want to thank our online audience for joining us and invite you to join us again next week for another exciting time as we wrap up our Wednesdays. Wednesdays are days where we have personal development, business, career, one-on-one counseling, and we always end with a time like this, either for leadership or for economic affairs. So next week, Wednesday, look out for something special, as always, from this center. Just some housekeeping announcements, just to remind us that next week we'll have a catch-up class for those who missed the earlier classes, and it will be at 8:30 a.m. prompt, and then our main class starts at 10 o'clock. But a big thank you one more time to Kwaku Sakyi-Addo. And a big thank you to you all for coming. Let's bow down our heads as we invite Pastor Thompson to come and say the closing prayer for us.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for the opportunity to come and study, to come and be inspired. We thank you that you've raised people that would come to share their narratives, that will move us from one place to where you've promised all of us to be. We ask that, Lord, as we leave this place, you would guide us. Whatever we've learned from this place, you would inspire our hearts to keep learning, to keep reaching out for the best. And at the end of it all, we give you praise and glory. We thank you through Jesus' thanksgiving. Everybody say a big amen.